are here for a big topic tonight. If you know someone who is in perimenopause, approaching perimenopause, constantly whinging about being in menopause, you need to get them on here tonight. Hi. I'm just going to give everybody a minute or so. Hope everyone's had a great day. Hope everyone's had a great day. Very cold in Melbourne today, although the sun was shining. I'm really keen to get as many people as we can on here to talk about this big topic. So if you're just joining me, go and find the friends, get them in. Hi ones. It's super early here in the UK. I love you. Love the music. Yes. Love. Much love to everyone. Alrighty. So, for those of you who are new around here, I say this every time we start. Two things I want to tell you. I've got something for you at the end, so you need to hang around. We're going to be here until 5:30. So if you need to get your friends on, do that right now. Secondly, I'm just going to start to wind good old JT down for a minute. Don't mind me. How good's, I mean, music's good anyway. So, thanks for joining us here tonight for Ask Nat. We're here for about half an hour. Like I said, go and get the people. Cold in Sydney, love that. You can't hear me. Can everyone on Instagram hear me? Can someone make sure that you can hear me? Let me know if you can't hear me. I'm just waiting to make sure. Hopefully you can. Hopefully you can hear me. So, big topic. Like I said, perimenopause. Thank you. Okay. If you can't hear me, then I think maybe you need to check something on your end because everyone's saying yes, which is good news for me, but not for that person. I don't know how else to help you. But yes, very big topic. Got something at the end for you. We're going to be here for about half an hour. If you've got questions, please start to drop them in the comments. I am going to try and get through as many as I can. I understand that this is a huge topic, and yesterday we literally I think we broke my Instagram, although I know Instagram's having issues at the moment, but we've had so much traction, so many questions. I've never had this many questions when I've put Ask Me Anything up there with regards to a topic. So this is huge. And I've got some exciting things that I do want to point out for everybody to help you understand this phase of your life a little bit better. And one other thing before we really get into it is that you guys know that, if you don't know by now, why did it just time out? Unable to do my video on Instagram. Okay, we're going to go back and make that live. Bear with me, peeps. Return home. So my love language is words of affirmation, and so I would really like for love hearts, comments. Makes me feel special, makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself, because there's a whole lot of you out there, lots of you on this call. I am just jumping myself back on Facebook again because it decided to kick me out. And Perry, I can't do two things at once. Perimenopause. Perimenopause. What is it and how to go? All right, let's do that. So, Facebook decided to boot me off, which I reckon is probably because I played music. Can't find my camera or microphone. How annoying. All right, that's okay. We'll just go with Instagram, which is very frustrating because we don't get the good audio when we do it that way. Okay, we get rid of that. And we get rid of this. All right, so here for it, like I said, and ready to jump in, although I do need this because I've got some things I want to talk to you about. So, yes, at the end, we will have something special for you, but until then, you're going to have to just bear with me. Perimenopause, let's go, is the period of time from around 35 onwards. Now, there's a lot of confusion about this, and people are quite confronted with that idea that from 35, you are heading into menopause. Here's what you need to know. It is a phase like puberty or your peak fertile years. Beyond that, we go through perimenopause, and then we go into menopause, and then we go postmenopause. These are normal phases. They're not illnesses. But what we see are very common symptoms that occur. So, first of all, from around 35, now that might mean you might be 32 or you might be 38, whatever that looks like for you, but we start to transition into this period of time where we know that our hormones get ready to start to come on the decline. This is good news. This is what's supposed to happen. But we do fear it. Women are really confused about what that means. It doesn't mean you are instantly barren. It doesn't mean you instantly have low libido. It doesn't mean that you should have a whole truckload of symptoms, but it does mean that we do see some changes. And we come out of our 20s and a period of time in our 30s where we are in our optimal years for reproductive health. We can continue to support and preserve our fertility right up until the end, which means that you can still get pregnant if you want to, but you can still track your fertility awareness if you don't want to. That's really important to understand. If you weren't fertile beyond this time, women wouldn't be prescribed birth control. So you can fall pregnant, absolutely, and it really is about, as always, creating an optimal environment for hormone balance so that you don't have symptoms. So it's very normal in our peak fertile years. We have heavier, longer periods. We tend to see less symptoms at that time, and the symptoms are just a result of your body being worn down at the end of the day, unless there are some other hereditary factors or known conditions like PCOS and endometriosis. So typically the changes, and they're not symptoms, they're changes that we see leading into perimenopause is that the periods get lighter and shorter. This is good news. This is great news. A lot of women get very worried when they see that their periods change and they get lighter. No one talks about this stuff, but typically, from what I understand, from what I've observed especially, is that they get lighter. Guess what? Then as we move more into our menopausal years, they tend to get heavier and more sporadic. And that's a sign that you are heading into menopause. Now, remembering that this period of time could last up to 20 years, sometimes more for women. So it's definitely not a sharp decline in our hormones, but it is a slow decline where our hormones are supposed to start to decline. That's normal. That's supposed to happen. You do not want to be menstruating in your 60s. Like, really, who does? And it doesn't have to come with symptoms. In fact, I would very much welcome the lighter, shorter periods. They're good. I like this. We notice that we start to see some night sweats just before the period. So yes, typically night sweats are very common during menopause, but in our perimenopausal years, many women do report that they start to experience night sweats just before the period arrives. So that can be a common sign that we can see. And cycles become less regular. So if you're in your 20s and early 30s, you might have always had a regular 28-day cycle. You're like, nah, it's always been 28 days. All of a sudden, it's 26, it's 30, 32, 29, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's just another part of the phase of menopause. Again, it's not a symptom, it's part of the phase, which is part of the reason why it can be a little bit more tricky to fall pregnant, but it doesn't mean you can't. It just means that you need to practice fertility awareness to know when you're ovulating. And if you've done that for long enough, you can start to observe the ebbs and flows and changes to the point where it kind of becomes a bit of a no-brainer. Like, you know when you're ovulating and when you're not. So these are the common changes that we see. Now, that brings me to the common imbalance and symptoms that we see. And that's different. We can see hormone imbalance at any phase or stage of our lives as women. But perimenopause doesn't come with symptoms. It's a phase. Just like menopause has common characteristics, but if your hormones are balanced to the best of your ability, you shouldn't have a bunch of symptoms. You shouldn't really have a bunch of symptoms at any stage. So we can very commonly see ovulation and heavy period, ovulation pain and heavy periods as a symptom of hormone imbalance, especially at this phase. We can see delayed ovulation, especially through perimenopause, which means that this is part of the reason why the cycles can be a little bit longer. Women very often report low libido. And the other really common symptom that women think that is associated with perimenopause, but it is very common at perimenopause, is weight gain. And also insomnia is the other one I'd add to that as well. So we start to see really common symptoms that arise at perimenopause, but doesn't mean that perimenopause is characterized by symptoms. Perimenopause is a phase. It's not an illness. It's not a condition. It's a phase that we go through. Just like if we had hormone imbalance when we were a teenager and we had problematic skin or acne. There's a reason that's happening, and that's all got to do with what your hormones are actually doing and what the imbalances are that exist for you at that period of time. So knowing all of this information is really nice, because we can first of all start to work out what should be happening or what's normal to happen, what can indicate an imbalance, too much estrogen, not enough testosterone, whatever those imbalances might be. And I'm sure as we answer some of these questions that are here, we'll get a little bit more clear on what some of those might look like. I find answering questions is the best way to do that. And then I want to give you also, before we head to that, is some ways to address these imbalances. So, I want to give you hacks that you can take away. And as always, we will have a shareable graphic for you to use for this after the live that you can go and save, you can go and share. And the other thing, if you're watching this right now on a replay, please go and share this around with people that you love and know, because women are really, really confused about perimenopause, as I'm finding out. I didn't actually realize how confused we are and how scared we are of it. And I'm here to say it's not like, it doesn't just all dry up and get cut off and your vagina shrivel up into your insides. It doesn't happen. We can still thrive. We can still be fertile. We can still have babies. We can still have safe pregnancies. We can feel happy and healthy during this next phase that we're experiencing. So before we go into these questions, some easy ways to address perimenopausal imbalances. Now I'm going to call them perimenopausal imbalances because they most commonly occur during this phase of perimenopause. So support healthy estrogen and clear unhealthy estrogen. One of the best ways I would recommend you do this is with flaxseed and wild greens. They help to support healthy gut function. They help to support liver detoxification. They help to support healthy estrogen but eliminate excess or unhealthy estrogen. You must also, so you support healthy estrogen. You must also address inflammation. So where there is inflammation, there's always going to be a truckload of other problems that come with it. It's not just pain. So my recommendation is to include herbs and spices like turmeric, garlic, cinnamon, cloves, sage, rosemary, pepper, ginger. They are all anti-inflammatory herbs and spices that you can put in your cooking, and you should be doing this. It's very easy to add these to your food. We need to learn how to move properly as we move into perimenopause, and this is one of the ones we really get wrong, I feel. We do what we did in our 20s and early 30s, thinking that it's going to work in our 35s and beyond, and guess what? It does not. So one of the common symptoms, as we discussed, was weight gain. And so what do we do when we've gained weight? We work out harder for longer and more and more and more. And guess what? Our bodies don't like that anymore. So what we eat your curry, people. So what we want to do is we want less cardio, more weight sessions, and rest days in between. This is really important. The recovery as we get older becomes far more important, but you can't have the recovery without the movement. So my recommendation is at least 2 weight sessions a week, at least 3 rest days a week. We're already up to 5, and some gentle cardio or HIIT session for the other 2. And that is all you need to do. It doesn't need to be more, it needs to be less, because we want to manage our cortisol, which then allows us to manage our other hormones better. And so less is more as we get older, and I cannot stress that enough. Add more fats, including oily fish, nuts, seeds, avocado, olive oil, eggs. As we get older, we definitely thrive with more therapeutic fats and good quality fats. And my favorite, which I always talk about every single time, is keep the bowels moving, and that the secret recipe for that is fiber. Fiber is also a prebiotic. It helps us with lots of other things in terms of supporting our gut function, our bowel function, and also we need to eliminate these excess hormones. We do not want them sitting in the bowel because the body will just reabsorb them, and that can cause other issues as well. So obviously my cleanse mix is my favorite way of you doing that, but you can eat more fiber. That's not difficult. You just need to be mindful. And what I want you to realize is why you're doing these things. Like, oh, Nat said more spices. Why? Because it helps address inflammation. Nat said more fats. Why? Because our hormones are made of fat and protein, and we definitely need to support that more as we get older. So we will share an infographic, as always, that I would invite you to share around either a little bit later tonight or in the morning, just to summarize all of that. And that's going to help you to really profile and work out what's going on for you. All right, we've got about 15 more minutes to answer some of these questions. Let's have a look at what's going on here. Okay, I do like love hearts if I didn't say that before. How long is perimenopause phase? Is there key things we need to be doing to support ourselves during this time? I feel like I might have answered the question. It starts around 35 and it can go on until you go through menopause. The key is this also, if you can get perimenopause right, guys, menopause is going to be so much better. Like, you know, less problematic, less symptoms. What we do now continues to set us up for every phase. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not perimenopausal, what you do now still sets you up to thrive during perimenopause. And I mean, if this is lasting for 20 years, I don't know about you, but I want to feel good for the next 20 years. I don't want to feel rubbish. My mum menstruated till she was 62, later diagnosed with uterine cancer and endometriosis. That sounds awful. I'm sorry that was her experience. I mean, if I was still menstruating until I was 62, I would definitely go and have a look at what else might be going on. Fibroids, things, you know, always in response to elevated estrogen levels. I don't know, you know, the nature of what happened with her, but I definitely, it is getting to the longer end of menstruation. I would say if you're still menstruating when you're in your early 50s, that you want to make sure that everything is okay. Just scans, have a look if there's any type of fibroids, polyps, or anything else going on that can be problematic. Is brain fog an indication of hormone imbalance? Brain fog can happen for many reasons, and yes, I would definitely start with looking at thyroid and also looking at gut function when it comes to that. A long daily walk's okay with 2 to 3 weight sessions. It's probably a little bit too much in terms of what I've just outlined. I mean, if that works for you and you're finding that you're feeling happy and healthy, then by all means. But I think the most common thing I'm hearing at the moment is women saying they can't lose weight or they can't manage their weight properly, whereas it's never been a problem before. I will also say that the world is collectively not right at the moment. And I'm finding there are a lot of women that are gaining weight without even, for no reason whatsoever. I want you to be mindful of working smarter and not harder at the end of the day. And when we work harder, that elevated stress response can definitely contribute to weight gain. Also, more estrogen, or as a result of stress, estrogen can be impacted, and we can have, find ourselves becoming estrogen dominant. Estrogen is a metabolic hormone. So more estrogen, more fat cells produce estrogen, and it's just this vicious cycle. So we need to be mindful of that as well. Have you thought about putting into a book like you did with Beautiful You? I know. Do I need to do this? Do I need to go and get myself another book deal? Maybe. There's a need. Thanks for the info, Nat. Low DHA levels are indicator of perimenopause. Oh, yeah, remember, it's not a syndrome. So I would be looking at FSH levels. I'd actually be looking at all of your hormones and just making sure they're where they should be. And if you've got low DHEAs, then you need to address stress and look at what your adrenals are doing and get on some type of adrenal support, definitely. But, we cannot continue to operate in a highly stressed state and expect our body to work properly. We just can't. And we cannot expect just supplements to outweigh a poor lifestyle. So I don't know your situation, but I think a lot of us, we know we cope well with stress, but something is always compromised as a result because we're not designed to be constantly stressed. Stress puts us into an inflammatory state. we want to create as much anti-inflammatory of a situation internally as we possibly can to continue to balance our hormones. So that's another reason why if we're constantly inflamed, if we're constantly in overdrive and our body's trying to deal with that, that's a stress in itself. So it's another vicious cycle. We need to try and find as many touch points to bring our cortisol down, to bring our inflammation down, to support our gut, our hormones, and all of these things, so that we can actually feel good and that our hormones can have the best opportunity to thrive no matter what age. What about if you have low AMH levels, doing all the things you say, and not a lot of perimenopause symptoms the last 2 to 3 months? Any other tips for fertility? Yes, so AMH is the most rubbish test on the planet, and I would never take that as a given. I have never seen AMH levels not rise after treating a patient for 12 weeks on the protocol that I advocate for in my book Well and Good, which is the book that's directed at fertility. So if you haven't got a copy of Well and Good, that could be a really useful place to start. But we need more fat, more protein, pretty much all the things I'm talking about here. Guys, we separate fertility out. We put fertility on an island over here. It's not separate. It's part of hormone balance. So when our hormones are balanced, fertility and improved fertility outcomes is a side effect. It's not a I've got to go and do something different or something else. It's all part and parcel. So, but I don't want you to be fixated on the AMH. It's a good guide, but it's not a concrete measurement. So you can always improve your AMH levels. Well, I've never not seen them be able to be improved. So my best advice is to dive into Well and Good. What's my take on MHT? What's MHT? I don't know what MHT is. Can you explain what that is? I don't know the abbreviation. That's so true. Thanks for clarifying. You're welcome. The weight gain around my midsection has been the most depressing part of menopause. I look like a barrel and skinny legs. Well, look, let's just talk about the skinny legs so you can get them going. Weight gain around the middle is very much stress related, adrenal related. So we've got to look at all these factors that we're talking about. I think I've given you a lot of tips around that as well that will be useful. Can't lose weight from the stomach. Everyone's saying the same thing. What do? I have low progesterone. Is this a factor? Low progesterone will always exist for one of two reasons: low estrogen or high estrogen. So you need to work out what it is so that you can actually treat it. If it's high estrogen, you're going to know because you're going to generally have those elevated symptoms like ovulation pain, heavy bleeding, PMS. If it's low estrogen, then you're going to have light bleeding, potentially not regular periods, and that's usually I would start with the gut to help to support healthy estrogen. So there's two places that you can look into to work out which way to start. How do we go about getting hormones tested? Oh, you can start here. You can order a Dutch test. You can get people to help you to read your Dutch test. It's always important that you get somebody that knows what they're looking at to do that. Please don't ever be told. I've had this so many times this week where people have said my health provider and my doctor said there's no point in doing a test on my hormones. I have never heard anything more ridiculous in my life. That is literally saying, I don't know how to read your test results, so there's no point in doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's amazing doctors out there that are very happy to run tests that you need, but what you need to understand is when to do it, and someone needs to understand your cycle to help you work out when to do it. So this is why you invest in somebody that can help you with all of these things. But typically, if you have a regular cycle and you can tell when you're ovulating, the best time to do your hormone testing is 7 days after ovulation, which for most people on average is around cycle day 21, give or take, or cycle day 2, depending on what we're looking for. So you can do either, but you just can't test progesterone really if you're not doing it later in the cycle, because you don't have much of it until later in the cycle, because you need to have ovulated to create or to make progesterone. So would love to help you more with that. You need a book for perimenopause. Let's do this. I don't anyone ever talk about perimenopause at our age, early 40s and 30s. Need to get this info out there. I know, Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't even think about writing another book right now. But anyway, do you know if there's any research if COVID vaccine causes infertility? We're still waiting to understand the long-term impacts of the COVID vaccine. I have spoken a little bit about this, and I tend to do that in my emails and not so much on here. But in the short term, what we're looking at is for many women is only 2 or 3 or 4 cycles. And I've shared a little bit about what it does and how it actually does impact in the short-term inflammation. In the long term, we don't have an answer for that yet. So I guess like everybody else, we're sitting here waiting to learn more about that. So I don't have a solid answer for that. Just turned 40 and I know nothing about perimenopause or menopause. How we know so much info about puberty but nothing about these other stages? Do you know what I really feel like in the past? Women didn't get an opportunity to actually feel like women past having children, as in feel like we could thrive, feel like we could feel good, and we accepted our symptoms as just being part of being a woman. And isn't it nice to learn that you can still feel great at no matter what age? There was always that woman growing up though, right? That had that figured out. I don't know about you, but there was a few figures in my life that I'm like you could tell they were happy and healthy. But many women, suffered through menopause, and because their hormones were never looked at and analyzed, they really did suffer, and they continued to suffer beyond because their hormones were imbalanced, probably from well before. So I really feel like the reason that it hasn't been talked about until now is we're more vocal, we have more information available, we're really fortunate to be living at a time where this is just part of a conversation, probably like never before. Well, I think prior to, HRT, sorry, I see, menopause hormone therapy. Any thoughts on it? Well, it's not fixing the imbalance. So HRT is the question, MRT is the other, MHT is the other question. I just feel like it bypasses the root cause. And I think we always need to be looking at why is something happening to us and try and fix the imbalance. I'm not saying you shouldn't use HRT or menopause hormonal therapy, but I think you should look at what these imbalances are. And the earlier we can look at this, the better the outcome. So it is very individualized, but that would be my answer to that. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of questions here. Is there anything else we can do to preserve fertility apart from all of the wonderful tips you've given? Well, that would require a one-on-one consultation, I think. I can only give so much out in an environment like this that's safe without knowing a person's full history. And I think it's really important to invest when it comes to this. Guys, I get so many messages from you guys literally giving me, lab reports and wanting an answer, and that would be such a disservice to you to do that and dangerous for me to do that. So, it's important that if you need this information, you either start to really invest the time and energy into reading and listening to podcasts and doing all these things, or cut to the chase and find somebody that you trust to actually consult with. Curious of your thoughts on fibroid removal. That's not off topic. I don't have an issue with fibroid removal. They're pesky and they're stubborn, and if by the time they're often found, they're really big and difficult to treat. The smaller they are, the more treatable they are by alternative medicines, but that's not always the case, and it's an individual thing. So I would say that if there's a family history of fibroids, then it's really important that you are on top of that and very regularly monitoring if that's going to be a factor for you. Always also just to try and work on your estrogen your entire life. But I'm not opposed to them being removed if they're problematic. It is major surgery for a lot of women, so you need to be mindful of that. But if they're being problematic, if they're causing you discomfort or pain or heavy bleeding or whatever that might be, then by all means it's a good idea to address those. No, we don't need to suffer. We don't need to suffer. Periods have been fluctuating 14 days to 35. Is this perimenopause? Periods have been bleeding for 14 days or cycles of 14 days? I need a little bit more information, but you shouldn't really be bleeding for any more than 7 days maximum. Turned 40, I was told it's all downhill. No, it's not. The best's yet to come. You get more freedom. Oh my goodness. How do we reduce estrogen? So we've done estrogen as a topic so many times. If you want more information on how to regulate estrogen, my recommendation is to jump on my website, type in estrogen dominance, and go and have a look at all of that's there. But for estrogen, we need to definitely look at the gut, the liver and the bowels specifically, to help us regulate that better. Cycles have been fluctuating from 14 to 35 days. So 14 is really early. I need to know more information. But what's considered normal is anything from 24 to 36 days. Anywhere in between there is considered normal. I don't know how many 14-day cycles you've got, but I would definitely be looking into that. Do I think perimenopause affects libido? So we talked about that at the very beginning. We went into that, and I said that's a symptom of hormone imbalance, not a commonly seen. It's common because it's hormone imbalance. It's not a result of perimenopause. It's the hormone imbalance that's contributing to the low libido. And I think you need to look into what your testosterone levels are doing and where your stress levels are at if you're experiencing that. All right, last question. 36 years old, last cycle was 50 days, averaging 40 to 45, have PCOS too. Could be related to perimenopause. I don't think so. I think that's probably more likely PCOS, but you still want to do everything you can to get your cycles as regular as possible, which is still absolutely possible with PCOS. So I don't think that at this point is so much a result of perimenopause. I think it's because of your history. We can safely assume that it's PCOS without seeing you. All right, guys, a few things for you. Now, guess what's back? Book club is back. It starts the 1st of September. I'm going to drop a link here for you if you haven't. Oh, it's not going to let me do it now. Okay, there's a link in my bio. Let's go with that. If you want to explore your body more, and look, book club, whilst it's around Beautiful You, we need to learn the mechanisms, we need to understand ourselves, we need to see what our bodies are telling us, and I'm very excited to say that I will heavily focus on perimenopause in this next round of book club starting 1st of September. There are 2 options with book club. You can choose the standard access or you can choose a VIP access. Book club is 4 weeks and we meet every Wednesday night for 4 weeks and we dive into all of this stuff, and it really is, it's literally helping you through a whole 4-week cycle to fully understand your hormones better. So if you want in with that, places are limited. We haven't run book club for a couple of months because we've been launching Daisy and doing all these other things that have been so much fun, but I'm ready to get back into book club with you guys, and I want to make this our, well, I don't want to tell the other people best one yet, but the best thing about book club is once you're in, you're in. So you can, once you join, you're in book club, you can come back as many times as you like, even though these next 4 weeks through September are dedicated to this next round. If you signed up last September, you're still in there and you can come and join the party. So I'm very, very excited to make it very much focused more around perimenopause. We haven't done that yet, but I think this is the best way that I can help you specifically. If you were to have a consultation in my clinic, the cost of book club is like a quarter of a consultation, yet you get a lot of interaction with me in this group setting. We learn from each other. There's a community of like-minded women. We have fun. It includes a copy of Beautiful You. If you have one already, then I'd encourage you to on-gift the second one. But I'm so, so, so excited. I was sitting here today and I was like, I get to actually now support these guys with book club with this theme of perimenopause, which I just, like so many of you have said, there's not enough information on it, we don't understand. I want to dive deeper into some of the more detailed reasons and solutions. You know, I want to look more heavily at things like leptin resistance, insulin resistance, other factors that might be contributing. I've just skimmed the surface here, guys, tonight with what I know is very accessible and still going to be a great first step for you to start to implement in your path to navigating perimenopause. But there is a lot more that we can add that is more specific to individuals. So I want to help you through that. So please don't hesitate if you are thinking about joining book club. I really would invite you to go and do that ASAP. I just don't know why it's not letting me share. I'm going to try one more time. But it is, there's a link in my bio for book club, and you can go and access those 2 or have a look at the 2 options and which one suits you best. I think that's it for tonight, guys. There was something else. One other thing. I took it. I took a sneaky look before. I had a cancellation tomorrow afternoon. Just saying. My website, thepagodatree.com.au, you could do a telehealth appointment, and we could. I'm sure someone wants to snabble that up, but you can go on and book a telehealth through the website. If you're stuck with that as well, there's another link in the bio for that as well, right here. So I am able to consult with you telehealth. And I would love to be able to support you with your hormone health. So, I think that's it. So much, such a big topic, I know. I'm so for it. I'm so here for it. And I really am keen to share more of this. But like I said, don't forget book club. Don't forget that you can, if you're wanting to dive in, there's many providers. There's lots of awesome people around that can do that. But I can definitely support you with telehealth. Bye, guys.